Hi, and congratulations on completing week 6. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to go through the assignment. We had one discussion, and then we had kind of an in-depth word analysis. On whole, everyone did another great job this week. However, on the word analysis, there was a little more work that could have been completed, and I want to go through that. There we go. In a bit more detail. So on our discussion question, having completed your analysis of circumcised and circumcision, discuss the following question: what significance has the physical act taken on in the context of Galatians 6? I know this was a short week, and by the way, happy Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone had a moment at least that they could take with family and friends. But as you did your analysis here on circumcision, I wanted you to explore how the New Testament authors take this sacred act from the Old Testament and then interpret it into the New. And so I was looking for an understanding of the use of the word in the Old Testament compared to how it's being used, especially by Paul in the New Testament. And then looking for a discussion of how Paul uses the term in the passage that you're supposed to be studying more in depth. And then finally looking for an analysis of how the term is understood in the passage, in that Paul uses the term as synonymous with Jewish. He makes this a major distinction between Jews that follow the law, i.e. circumcision, and Christians who have a circumcised heart and do not need an outward sign. On a couple of the discussions, I mentioned how is this related or not related to baptism, because in some ways, baptism is an outward sign of an inward change. And does circumcision convey some of this same idea, or should it even convey some of the same idea to a modern day Christian? But on whole, I thought the discussions were good. People were mostly engaged, especially in light of the short weekend. Then there was a word study, and you were to look at an in-depth word study, and you have a guide. You had to kind of work through the guide into the middle to find the section that's on how to do a word study. But I was looking for a detailed chart showing each occurrence of the word and how it's used. You needed to look at the word's use in other translations. So even though you might be using the NIV or the NET as your primary, I wanted you to explore at least how this word is being translated in some other translations. In addition, the paper should include an analysis of the words with outside academic support on the meaning. So in other words, did you look it up in any commentaries or other outside sources? And then finally, I wanted a conclusion examining how the word was understood in the passage and how this understanding influences your interpretation. So I wanted to take a second and explore what another student, and in this case it was Jason's paper, and the excellent in-depth analysis that he did. So looking at Galatians, which was your passage under study, he explored the NIV, the NASB, the ESV, and the NET to see if, in fact, there were any differences in the way these were understood. And there really wasn't in this passage, but if you were to do that analysis of circumcision in other passages, it's actually translated in different ways, but here it's not. But he went through the process. Then looking at step 2, looking at each occurrence in the New Testament of the word circumcise or circumcision and his observations on how it is being used. And he goes through each of the 20-something examinations. And if there was an important point, he stops, takes some time, looks at it, and then outlines its important use. I thought it was really poignant the way he did a quick analysis and then he made some notes at the bottom on how that might be understood. So we go through here, quite an analysis, as you'll see. Then this is the part that I think is the most telling, is how do you then group the uses of the word? And here he came up with 4. He used the Abrahamic covenant, misappropriated by man. I thought that was a great catch. Faith working through love, so circumcision as faith working through love, new covenant in the life of Christ, and then fulfillment of God's promises by the Spirit. And then where is it being used in the New Testament for that? Then he took the next step, which is to say, well, are there other words in each of these passages in Galatians that helps to define our word? And in Galatians 2:3, there's not. 2:7, not. But then you come down here to Galatians 5, and he talks about severed as being a word that is used to help define how circumcision is being used. And then going through the rest of Galatians, then looking at an examination of the book where it occurs, and then finally coming down and looking up the word in a theological dictionary and what that looks like. And then a conclusion, returning back to the passage, and how does this entire study help us to better understand the use of the word? So it's clear here that the student, in this case Jason, has put a lot of time trying to really understand the breadth of the term and how it is being used by Paul to communicate a theological understanding to us, the reader. And I thought that was just an excellent analysis, and one that was worth taking a second to share with the class, so that when you do have a word study in the future, that's what professors are looking for. And if you were to ever to do a word study for an academic paper or for some other academic source, that's the kind of analysis that your peers will be looking for from you. Okay, so thanks for a great week, and thanks for all the hard work this semester. I did post a quick note that the links are now open for course evaluations. Moody uses that to evaluate me as your professor. We also use that when we are redesigning courses. We go back through all the comments on what could have been done better. So when we redesign the courses, we make them the best that they can be. So it is not a worthless exercise, but in fact quite a worthwhile exercise for you to take a few minutes and complete the course analysis. All right, moving into week 7. Have a great day.